Do you know that little salt you use to season the food every holy day? Well, believe it or not, it goes far beyond the kitchen. Since older times, salt has been used as a powerful spiritual weapon, capable of breaking curses, invoking blessings, and bringing spiritual protection. It looks strange at first glance, right? But only wait until you see what the Bible has to say about it. Whether in spiritual struggle or a prophetic ritual, salt has always been present, symbolizing purification and sanctification. Who doesn't remember David's victory, won in Vale du Sal, a battlefield that reveals the spiritual power of this seemingly simple mineral? And it wasn't just the Hebrew people who recognized this power, did you? Many ancient cultures also knew of the sacred and protective value of salt. Nowadays, while some people still have doubts about using physical elements as spiritual tools, those who understand the biblical use of salt already enjoy the blessings of this powerful practice. And it doesn't have to be complicated at all. A consecrated pinch in prayer can bring victory in areas you don't even imagine. Want to know more about it? So come with me that I explain everything to you right at the next point. Have you ever wondered why God created something as simple as salt with such a deep function? Yeah, nothing in the divine plane is by chance. Since creation, salt has received a special and even surprising mission to be a spiritual weapon for purification, blessing, and spiritual protection. That's right. Long before science explained its properties, God had already revealed this secret. In the Bible, we clearly see that salt was chosen by the Creator himself to exert spiritual authority, as well as water and fire. These elements are not there for nothing. Each has its essential role. For example, in various passages, salt is mentioned as an important part of the Lord's salt offerings, symbolizing purity, sanctification, and a perpetual covenant, known as the Salt Covenant. Just imagine if God gave a spiritual mission to salt. Are we enjoying it today? Perhaps it is time to better understand how this common element can directly impact our spiritual life. And believe me, it's not just church chat or ancient tradition. Not the spiritual importance of salt is something you can start applying right now. Want to know how? Hold there, that soon I will show you. If Jesus himself compared us with salt, believe me, there is something deep there. There in Matthew 5:13, when Jesus said, "You are the salt of the earth," he was not just doing a cute metaphor, no. He knew very well that salt represents purification, preservation, and spiritual sanctification. That is, our mission is exactly this: positively influence the world around us. But think to me, why would Jesus use salt soon as an example? Well, remember that at that time, without a refrigerator, salt was critical to preserving food from rot. Just as salt prevented the flesh from spoiling, we also have an essential spiritual role to protect the world from evil, from moral and spiritual corruption. We are a kind of living spiritual weapon in daily spiritual war against curse and destruction. Now, if you're already thinking, but how do I do it in practice? Calm down, it's simpler than it sounds. Just as salt seasons all the food that touches, its attitudes, words, and actions, when aligned with the teachings of Jesus, can season the lives of the people around you. Want to understand how to use it in a practical way, and even in prophetic rituals? Come with me, that'll tell you already. Look how curious, since the Old Testament, God already made clear the spiritual value of salt. In Leviticus chapter 2, God commanded every offer to be seasoned with salt. But was this just so that food becomes tastier? None of that. Salt here symbolized purification and, above all, the covenant of salt, a perpetual covenant between God and his people. Not bad for something you find in any kitchen, right? Moreover, in 2 Chronicles, the Bible reinforces the spiritual importance of this element, mentioning salt as a symbol of a divine commitment that could never be broken. It is as if God is saying, "With me there is no empty promise, no. All I do is permanent and holy." Salt was then a kind of divine stamp, ensuring blessing and spiritual protection for those who fulfill the commandments. Nowadays, you don't have to go around playing salt in everything, but understanding this biblical use of salt can radically transform your vision on spiritual battles. Whether in a prophetic ritual or in the daily spiritual struggle against curses, using salt with conscience can strengthen your faith and sanctify your walk. Want to know exactly how to apply this? Still with me, because the next topic will make you even more impressed. Did you know that the same salt that blesses and protects has also been used as a curse sign? It looks like a movie thing, right? But the Bible is clear in showing this contrast. Remember the story of Sodom and Gomorrah? When those cities were destroyed by God, the soil was covered with salt, symbolizing a definitive divine judgment against corruption and evil. Yeah, blessing and curse separated by a tiny grain. On the other hand, the same salt used in contexts of destruction also served for purification and spiritual protection. Since ancient times, it was common for places and objects to be consecrated with salt to ward off negative influences, witchcraft, or evil spirits. Thus, salt became a spiritual weapon capable of either decreeing the end of something bad and of sanctifying and preserving what was good. Now you may be wondering, okay, and how do I apply it to my life? Well, when you understand the biblical use of salt, you realize that it can be used to break curses and attract blessings, bringing spiritual protection to your home, family, or work. Want to find out how to do this in practice without falling into superstition? So stay with me, because we will explore this at the next point. Many people do not realize, but there is a true spiritual battle happening all the time around us. In this fight, salt plays a much more important role than you think. Interestingly, while some practitioners of witchcraft try to distort the spiritual use of salt, the biblical truth is that it was created by God to protect us and help us break curses. But what do you mean? Well, throughout the Bible, salt is used in key moments to consecrate environments, sanctify people, and even free families from negative influences. In other words, salt is a legitimate spiritual weapon, created to be used by the children of God in prayer and prophetic ritual, bringing sanctification and driving away evil forces. It is almost as if God has put a spiritual shield inside the heel keeper, just waiting for you to use it. If you are thinking that it looks a little weird or complicated, calm down, I help you uncomplicate. You can start by consecrating salt in prayer, asking Jesus to sanctify this element, and then use it strategically in your home or workplace. And believe me, this simple practice has helped many people gain significant victories in their spiritual battles. Want to know more practical details of this? So come with me to the next point. Have you heard that expression, "This is worth the salt you eat"? Yeah, it comes from ancient Rome. At that time, Roman soldiers were literally paid in sal, and the word salary. See, just something simple like salt was so valuable that it guaranteed subsistence and respect for troops. Now, then imagine the spiritual importance that other cultures also attributed to it. In the Middle East, for example, there was a very strong tradition called Covenant of Sal. This salt covenant was a sacred and eternal agreement, symbolizing unbelievable loyalty and commitment. Anyone who broke this pact carried a heavy curse with them, while those who respected this covenant were covered with blessings and spiritual protection. You can feel the seriousness of the subject, right? Today you may not receive your salt salary. Thank God, it would be strange to pay slips with him. But understanding the historical and spiritual value of this element can change your way of dealing with everyday spiritual battles. Are you curious to find out how to use all this knowledge in your practical life? Calm down, which at the next point I explain better how to do this. Have you ever noticed that sometimes it seems that our money evaporates quickly, as if it had wings? Well, perhaps something simple but spiritually powerful is missing the purification of their resources with salt. The Bible clearly mentions that the offerings to God were seasoned with salt, symbolizing purification, sanctification, and a direct connection with divine blessings. If God valued this in the old days, why not consider these days? There are people who already practice this prophetic ritual today, you know? Before delivering tithes or church offerings, some more experienced Christians say a brief prayer, consecrate the value, and literally put a pit of salt there. It may seem strange at first, but this simple practice reinforces the spiritual purpose of the offer, breaks any curse linked to money, and releases abundant blessings on whoever performs. And don't worry, no one will think you want to salgate the pastor or priest, see? In fact, this symbolic gesture brings a greater awareness of the spiritual value of its financial resources. You were interested in experimenting with this, but you still don't know how to do it? Calm down, because in the next topic, I will give you more practical guidelines that you will be able to apply without difficulty. Now let's travel together to a historical, spiritual, and undoubtedly very curious place, the famous Valley of Sal. The Bible mentions that King David has won great victories on this battlefield. No wonder the scenario of these struggles became known as a spiritual place, symbolizing victory over curses, enemy forces, and dominion over spiritual territories. Can you imagine salt as part of a spiritual war strategy? These victories of David in the Sal Valley are not only ancient stories or biblical reports without connection with the present. On the contrary, they are true teachings that show how God can use simple things to operate extraordinary miracles. Their salt represented the purification of the earth, the breaking of ancient curses, and the spiritual liberation of the people. It was an effective spiritual weapon against physical and spiritual enemies. You can bring this biblical example to your life in a very practical way, you know? You may not have to form physically, but certainly faces daily spiritual battles, right? Understanding how to spiritually apply salt to your routine can be the differential that was missing for you to finally get that spiritual victory you want so much. Want to learn exactly how to do this? So come with me for the next topic. Now the time has come for you to expect the most learning to put into practice everything we've talked about here. It's no use knowing about the spiritual power of salt if we don't get your hands dirty. Do you agree? A simple and powerful way to start is through prayer. When we consecrate salt in prayer to Jesus, we ask Him to become a powerful instrument of purification, spiritual protection, and a curse breaking. You can, for example, take a handful of salt, introduce you to God in sincere prayer, asking Him to be sanctified and consecrated. Then, with this spiritual weapon in hand, spread a little on the doors and windows of your home, declaring protection, sanctification, and victory against any kind of spiritual attack. It is like creating a simple and effective spiritual shielding against every curse or witchcraft. No need to overdo it either, see? It's not to turn your home into a beach. One hint here and one there, made with faith and spiritual conscience, already brings amazing results. Want another advice? Make this a regular prophetic ritual, especially when you feel you need to reinforce your spiritual protection or break some specific battle. Prepared to use this powerful weapon in your daily life? So keep with me, which is still more amazingly coming.